Exercise 5.1, Part 1, percents. Much of what we're going to talk about here in exercise 5 also is associated with your calculator. The goal of this is to get you used to using your calculator, get you comfortable with using your calculator, so these simpler type arithmetic things that you may have been missing in the past, hopefully you won't miss in the future. To convert from a decimal to a percent, move the decimal point 2 places to the right and add a percent sign. 0.36, any time to go from decimal form to a percent, follow those directions. Decimal point goes 1, 2 places to the right, add a percent sign. 0.237, decimal point goes 1, 2 places to the right, add a percent sign. 0.4, decimal point goes 1, 2 spots to the right. Now here, to hold that place value position, we need to add a 0 at the end, and then again add the percent sign. If we want to go the other direction, convert from a percent to a decimal. Now, since we're going the other direction, we move the decimal point the other direction. Move the decimal point 2 places to the left and drop the percent sign. 29%. When there is no decimal point given in a number, remember it is understood to be at the end of the number. So even though it's not written, there is a decimal point right here behind the 9. Move it 1, 2 spots to the left, 0.29, drop the percent sign. 32.6%. Move the decimal 2 spots to the left, 1, 2 spots, 0.326, drop the percent sign. 5%, move the decimal 1, 2 spots. We must again add a 0 this time in front of the number to hold that place value position, and we have 0.05. To convert from a fraction to a percent, change the fraction to a decimal, then to a percent. So this involves what we talked about in exercise 4 along with what we're talking about today. 3/5 on the calculator, I'm going to take 3 divided by 5. 3 divided by 5 is 0.6. Now follow our rules on the previous slide to go from decimal form to percent. We move that decimal point 2 spots, 1, 2. We must add a 0 to hold the place value position and add a percent sign. 5.5. 5.5 as a decimal is 5.5. Go to a percent now, move the decimal point 1, 2 spots. We have to add a 0 at the end and add our percent sign. 3/20 on your calculator, 3 divided by 20, 0.15. Change to a percent now, move the decimal point 1, 2 spots, 15%. To convert from a percent to a fraction, change from percent to decimal, then to a fraction. 30%. Changing percent to a decimal, we move the decimal point 2 places this time to the left. We get 0.3. Now put 0.3 in your calculator, or know that this is read as 3/10. Either way, you're going to get that fraction of 3/10. 21.3%. Decimal point gets moved 2 spots to the left. So we have 0.213. Change that to a fraction, 0.213. Put that in your calculator. Use your change to fraction key, 213 over 1,000. The last one here, it's kind of cut off. I'll write it off to the side here. 62.5%. Move the decimal point 1, 2 spots, 0.625. Put that into your calculator, and we get 5/8. Let's take a look at those on the calculator real quick. First one was 30%. We changed to a decimal as 0.3. Remember, you hit 0.3 then, put it into your calculator, math, change to fraction, 3/10. You can also use your alpha y equals key. If we went 0.3, alpha y equals, that pulls up the menu that is very similar to the non-graphing calculator. Select number 4, fraction to decimal, hit enter, and you can get it that way as well. Next one was 0.213. Alpha y equals number 3. There's our fraction. And 0.625. Alpha y equals number 3. Oops. Well, that's going to get us to fraction 2 of 5/8. Okay. Probably should have used 0.625 alpha fraction to decimal, which is number 4. Remember, those two same commands are available here underneath your math menu. Change to fraction or change to decimal is on there as well. Operations with percents. Anytime you perform an operation with a percent, especially multiplication, first change the percent to a decimal. Most questions on the ACT that involve percents are going to be a multiplication type problem where you're finding a certain percent of something or find the percent discount, things like that. You have to remember anytime you're going to do a multiplication with a percent that you need to first change it to a decimal. Two key words that you need to recognize, and you'll see this over and over and over again throughout this class and on the ACT. The word of, when we go to write a mathematical expression, translates to multiply. The word is translates to equals. So in this first example here, 60% of 24 means 60% times 24. And 60% times 24, if I'm going to do a multiplication with a percent, I need to first change it to a decimal. That becomes 0.6 times 24, which is 14.4. Last one. How many weeks will it take to pay off a debt if you pay 16% per week? A couple of different ways that you can do this problem. I'm going to do it 2 different ways. It's important that you understand on the ACT, there are many different ways that most of these problems can be solved. There is not one right or wrong way. So because I choose to do it one way does not mean that you could not have gotten to the solution a different way. In this case, we're going to pay 16% per week. We know if we're going to pay off the entire debt, the entire amount is represented by 100%. So basically what we need to do is take this 16%, keep adding 16% to itself because that's what we're going to pay each week, and see when do we get to 100%. So in week 1, I would pay 16%. Week 2, I'm going to pay another 16%. So now I'm up to 32% or 0.32. Week 3, I'm going to pay another 16%. Now I'm up to 0.48. I'm going to pay another 16%. We're up to 0.64. Pay another 16%. We're up to 0.80. Pay another 16%. We're up to 0.96. Pay another 16%, and now I'm going to be over 100%. So we know the debt is paid off. So how many weeks did I have to pay 16%? Week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, week 5, week 6, and week 7. So we know sometime during the 7th week is when our debt is going to be paid off. That's one way that this problem could have been done, and it's perfectly fine if that's the way that you chose to do this problem. It can be done a little bit quicker with an equation. We're going to pay 16% per week, and we know that we want, or we need to pay 100% to have it paid off. So we're paying 16% per week, where X represents the number of weeks. How many times do I need to pay that 16% to equal what we need it to equal, which is 100%. Solve this equation for X by dividing both sides by 16. We get X to be 6.25, which means it's going to take 6 1/4 weeks to pay this debt, which means it won't be paid after 6 weeks, but we get the same solution sometime during that 7th week, our debt will be paid off.